Welcome back to the table, friends. I'm your humble host, GreyDMs, and with me, as always, is Owen.
That's me.
Owen, have you ever felt a little worn out?
Yes.
A little bit like too little butter spread over toast. Is that the Lord of the Rings thing? He says.
Okay, sure. I mean,
It's what Bilbo's saying.
Right.
So today we're going to basically try to tackle a topic that hopefully everybody encounters, or at least is put into the position to potentially encounter because you get enough time indulging your hobbies. And that is the topic of hobby burnout or creative burnout. So
I feel this
deep inside. I feel this constantly. But there's a lot of different facets of creative burnout that is different than just occupational burnout or general stress, / depression. So it's worthwhile to kind of bring some of this stuff up to your attention so that you can both facilitate your group's avoidance of this issue, help people who suffer from it, and hopefully avoid and recover if you do ever have to be in this situation. I think this is really just a good thing to know for everybody. So sit back, get your warm cup of tea, do whatever self-healing things you need to do, and let's talk about navigating the creative labyrinth. So creative endeavors, particularly those undertaken with communal settings like gaming or role-playing, are often ignited by an intense personal passion and an innate drive for expression. These activities serve as a powerful conduit for self-expression, intricate problem-solving, and the forging of deep social bonds. The joy derived from collaboratively building worlds, crafting narratives, or mastering complex game mechanics can be profoundly rewarding. However, their very intensity of engagement, while enriching, also renders participants vulnerable to a distinct and often underestimated challenge, which is creative burnout. The nature of creative burnout in hobbies diverges significantly from its occupational counterpart. In traditional work environments, the boundaries between professional duties and personal life are typically clearer. For creatives, especially those whose hobbies are deeply intertwined with their identity and sense of purpose, the lines blur considerably. What begins as a source of relaxation and profound satisfaction can insidiously transform into a wellspring of exhaustion, disillusionment, and creative stagnation. Within communal settings, the complexity escalates further. The creative energy of an individual is not an isolated entity. It is intricately connected to the collective dynamism of the group. Interpersonal dynamics, shared responsibilities, and mutual expectations introduce unique pressures that can amplify the risk of burnout, making it a shared challenge that requires collective understanding and proactive strategies. So what is creative burnout? Creative burnout is a profound state characterized by emotional, physical, and mental exhaustion, specifically centered around the creative activities or the very act of being creative. It transcends mere fatigue. It is a deep sense of being utterly drained, devoid of inspiration, and trapped within a seemingly inescapable creative rut. The once vibrant ideas that effortlessly populated the mind become distant and inaccessible, as if the wellspring of imagination is completely dried up. This debilitating state leaves individuals feeling profoundly disillusioned, detached from their artistic pursuits, and creatively inert. For many who engage in creative work, their very sense of self is deeply interwoven with the capacity to create. When the ability to generate new ideas or produce meaningful work diminishes due to burnout, it is not merely a setback in a hobby or a professional challenge. It can feel like a profound personal crisis. This deep connection between identity and creative output means that feelings of inadequacy, imposter syndrome, and a fundamental questioning of one's worth as a creator often surface. This intricate link to self-identity renders creative burnout particularly devastating, and consequently, more challenging to overcome as it strikes at the core of who a person perceives themselves to be. That ring a little true?
Yeah, I feel very seen.
Creative burnout manifests through a complex interplay of psychological, emotional, behavioral, and physical indicators. Recognizing these signs early is crucial for intervention and recovery. Psychologically, individuals may experience pervasive feelings of inadequacy and imposter syndrome, leading them to question their talents and accomplishments. There can be a diminished trust in one's own creative abilities, making it difficult to generate new ideas and fostering a sense of stagnation. Overthinking and overanalyzing become common, leading to a mental drainage and fatigue. Self-doubt can become a persistent companion, further eroding confidence, and concentration may become significantly impaired. Emotionally, a profound depletion of passion and enthusiasm is central to creative burnout, replaced by feelings of overwhelm, detachment, and disillusionment. Anxiety can become a constant companion, triggered even by simple tasks or the thought of new projects.
Yeah, I feel that one real hard.
Increased irritability or rapid mood swings are also common, impacting relationships and collaborations. A cynical or negative attitude towards one creative work, audience, or the process itself, known as depersonalization, can set in, leading to the loss of meaning and purpose. A general low mood and apathy can affect both creative work and broader life aspects, often culminating in feelings of frustration and despair. In severe cases, a kind of emotional numbness can develop, where individuals simply lose the capacity to care for themselves or their surroundings. Just checkbox.
Yeah, no, I'm mentally going through this list and I'm just like, I should be worried.
Behaviorally, a significant lack of motivation and drive to start or complete creative projects is a hallmark. This often leads to chronic procrastination, fueled by feelings of overwhelm or self-doubt. Individuals typically experience a marked decrease in satisfaction and enjoyment from pursuits they once brought them joy. Frequent comparisons with other creative works or achievements can undermine self-worth and amplify feelings of inadequacy. Ultimately, there could be a profound loss of purpose and meaning, feeling disconnected from creative goals and the fulfillments once derived from their work. Isolation, withdrawing from social interactions, and feeling detached is also a common behavioral response. Checkbox.
Yup.
Physically, creative burnout manifests as persistent fatigue and constant exhaustion, making even basic tasks feel monumental. Sleep disturbances, including insomnia, are frequently reported.
Well, I don't have that, thankfully. I can sleep the whole night through very easily.
That's a good one. That's like the last thing to hold on to. Headaches, muscle pain, and changes in appetite are also common somatic complaints. Prolonged stress can also lead to a heightened susceptibility to illness as the body's immune system is compromised. These symptoms are not isolated occurrences but often feed into a self-perpetuating cycle. When a creative individual experiences the initial pangs of exhaustion and a lack of inspiration, their output naturally declines. This reduction in productivity then triggers a cascade of internal criticism, self-doubt, and feelings of inadequacy, often leading to unfavorable comparisons with others. These negative self-perceptions further deplete creative energy and motivation, making it even more challenging to produce, thereby deepening the creative rut. Understanding their self-reinforcing mechanism is vital for effective intervention, as breaking any part of this cycle, whether by addressing self-criticism, taking a restorative break, or simplifying tasks, can initiate a positive ripple effect towards recovery. So while both creative burnout and general occupational burnout share commonalities in their manifestation of exhaustion and cynicism, creative burnout possesses distinct characteristics that make it uniquely challenging. General burnout is broadly defined as a psychological syndrome resulting from prolonged occupational stress. Creative burnout, however, specifically involves the loss of the ability to generate novel or useful ideas and solutions. It directly impacts the core creative function where the very act of ideation and problem solving becomes arduous and unrewarding. A critical differentiating factor lies in the inherent nature of creative work. Creatives possess a unique need to recharge creativity, a requirement that often goes unacknowledged. Their fields, whether professional or hobbyist, demand a continuous output of new original content, often in response to rapidly evolving trends, algorithms, or community expectations. This relentless demand for innovation creates a perpetual cycle of pressure. Furthermore, a significant overlap often exists between an individual's personal identity and their creative pursuits. For many creatives, their work is not merely a job or a pastime. It is an extension of who they are. This deep personal investment makes it exceedingly difficult to switch off from creative thinking. The mind remains in an always-on state, constantly processing ideas, seeking inspiration, and evaluating potential projects, even during periods designated for rest or leisure.
Hmm.
This continual mental engagement, while without adequate boundaries or genuine disengagement, leads to a chronic depletion of creative resources. Consequently, creatives become more susceptible to burnout than individuals in professions where work can be more easily compartmentalized. The challenge, therefore, is not simply about allocating time off, but about achieving true creative disengagement to allow for genuine mental and emotional replenishment. For a creative, burnout is not merely feeling tired from work, it is a crushing sense of failure, particularly when one's identity is so deeply intertwined with their creative output.
Yeah.
It kind of also makes sense why, like, when we talk about creative burnout, especially in the game and then, like, running a game or DMing or creating anything, even including these things like these podcasts and stuff like that, you can't regain that creativity by doing another creative task.
No.
So you can't go turn to the game or go turn to something else that we play. Like, oh, I'll just feel better. Like, you have to basically turn to, like, the absence of the production of creative things, which also feeds into, like, I'm a failure, I'm letting people down,
Right.
it feels like a trap. And then there's always, like they said, this sense of, like, oh, if I was someone better at this, I could do this. And I'm going to apply, like, look comparison of my stuff versus,
Right.
professionals, and, like, I'm the failure. Like, and it's a very deep, specific pit to go.
It's the tortured artist.
It kind of is, yeah. So creative burnout rarely stems from a single cause. Rather, it is typically the culmination of several interacting stressors that erode an individual's creative capacity and well-being. These factors can be broadly categorized into individual predispositions, interpersonal dynamics within creative groups, stressors inherent to the creative activity itself, external pressures, and overarching life circumstances. At an individual level, several traits and habits can be predisposed to a creative burnout. Overwork and excessive pressure to perform are primary culprits, often driven by self-imposed expectations or external demands. The relentless drive frequently leads to a severe lack of rest and an imbalance between creative pursuits and personal life. The very passion that fuels creativity can make it difficult to step away, leading to chronic exhaustion where the body and mind suffer and creativity dries up. I'm not too sure if that was applicable to us.
Yeah. No.
Perfectionism and self-imposed expectations also play a significant role. The pursuit of unattainable ideal can lead to endless revisions, self-criticism, and a constant feeling of inadequacy, trapping individuals in a cycle of self-doubt. This internal pressure can be more debilitating than external criticism. When creative work is primarily undertaken for business or external validation rather than for personal joy, the intrinsic motivation wanes, transforming a passionate pursuit into a monotonous obligation. This shift from internal drive to external demand is a significant factor in the erosion of creative energy. The blurring of lines between personal passion and professional demands, or the transformation of a beloved hobby into a perceived obligation, creates a significant trap for creative burnout. When a creative activity, especially a hobby like game mastering or game development, loses its inherent joy and becomes primarily driven by external pressures, such as deadlines, audience expectations, or the need for financial sustainability, it ceases to be a source of rejuvenation and instead becomes a profound source of stress. For a dungeon master, for instance, the preparation for a game can begin to feel more like a job than a hobby, signaling a dangerous shift in perception. This transformation means that the very activity intended for leisure and personal fulfillment paradoxically accelerates burnout, underscoring the critical need to reestablish the play aspect and intrinsic motivation. In communal creative activities, the dynamics within the group can significantly contribute to burnout. A lack of appreciation for the effort and work invested, particularly for roles like a game master, who often bears the brunt of preparation, can be deeply demotivating. Conflicting expectations and interpersonal drama among group members can add substantial stress akin to herding cats or refereeing constant disputes.
I mean, we don't have that issue. We kind of have like a different issue.
We have a very weird, like evolved specific issue.
Yeah.
We are definitely some weird Darwinian
What?
Some Darwinian like branch that is just like exists in some specific freaking ecological like situation. And you're like, wow, how did this happen?
Well, they were isolated on an island for so long.
Yeah, all the natural predators just developed into this specific bird style. If the group's playstyle or overall dynamic does not align with the individual's creative approach, it can lead to frustration and diminished desire to participate. Jedi. Furthermore, isolation and lack of support.
I feel attacked.
Furthermore, isolation and a lack of support can exacerbate feelings of self-doubt, especially in creative practices that are inherent solitary.
GURPS.
It's true. Unlike traditional workplaces, creative individuals often lack immediate feedback or encouragement, amplifying feelings of inadequacy when facing challenges alone. Yeah, that's what I said. Our group, I think, is actually pretty good about most of that stuff, but
Yeah.
it's just...
we don't have that person in our table yet that's just like, this is what we should be focusing on.
Oh, God. It's weird how the absence of something can tell you its shape.
Yes.
Within gaming and role-playing, specific pressure frequently leads to burnout. For game masters or dungeon masters, over-preparation stress is a pervasive issue. The desire to craft an immersed world, detailed non-player characters, and intricate plot lines can lead to hundreds of pages of notes and countless hours of planning, much of which may never be utilized. This meticulous, often unnecessary level of detail becomes an exhausting burden, making the hobby feel like a monumental task rather than a joyful pursuit. The sheer pressure and responsibility of maintaining a campaign, keeping players engaged, and continuously innovating can be immense. This constant demand for novelty, especially in game development, where individuals must constantly produce original content in response to rapidly changing trends and platforms, creates a never-ending cycle of pressure. A subtle but potent factor contributing to burnout, particularly for GMs and project leads in communal creative endeavors, is the paradox of control, often manifesting as decision fatigue. While creatives naturally desire control over their output and the directions of their projects, the sheer volume of decisions required, from minute world-building details to complex plot twists or game mechanics, can paradoxically deplete judgment and willpower.
I mean, in our particular group, we have difficulty deciding where to go eat for lunch.
Dude, seriously.
These are too many choices.
Seriously. And like, yeah, that's a funny joke, but like there is, when a hand is not forced upon our group to make a decision, we have spent literally 3 hours deciding on a course of action, to the point where I was watching the same conversation on loop, and I was like, this needs to stop.
And it's funny because literally all it needs sometimes is just one person to be like, we're going to do this.
Yeah.
And everybody's like, okay, cool, I'm fine with doing this.
And Jason's kind of like, he knows he often does that, but like, it should never come to that point.
No.
Like, if you have 2 doors and you're like, we don't know which door, there's fears and hopes on both doors. Eventually you got to get to a point where like, we got to pick one of these doors.
Yeah, you can't.
But like every time the group says, okay, so we're all going to go with door 1, somebody's like, yeah, but door 2.
Mm-hmm.
And you're like, you got to stop. We've been over it. You can't bring it up anymore.
Yeah. There is no door 2. There's only door 1.
When your default objection is the other door, like whatever, there is another door. Like, just stop.
But at the same time, such conflicts work out for characters who are trying to steer a group in a particular direction, because they always know, well, they're probably never going to be tied to or feel too strongly about one particular option. So you can always kind of steer it towards the option that you want.
I do love when like that doesn't happen and you're expecting it.
Yeah.
And, like everybody's like, it's door A. And you're like, guys, but door B. And they're all like, what? It's door A. Like, wow, they just immediately just chose something. This is completely against the group's character.
Yeah, that doesn't happen very often.
No, it's only a couple times. So over-preparation driven by a desire for perfection and control becomes exhausting and not entirely practical. This means that the very act of meticulous planning and making countless small decisions, often seen as a mark of dedication, can directly lead to a mental exhaustion and creative depletion. The drive for perfection, while seemingly positive, can manifest as an overwhelming burden of choices, making the creative process feel paralyzing rather than liberating. In contemporary creative landscape, external validation plays a significant, often detrimental role. The pervasive influence of social media and online platforms exposes creatives to a constant public scrutiny and judgment. The relentless pursuits of likes, shares, and positive reviews can create a dependency on external approval for self-worth, having individuals highly vulnerable to criticism and rejection. This constant comparison to others' perceived successes can amplify feelings of inadequacy and failure. Furthermore, the increased screen time and constant digital engagement, often exacerbated by remote work or side hustles, contribute to mental fatigue and make it difficult to truly disconnect. Doom scrolling and unhealthy comparisons online can further drain energy and motivation. Finally, creative burnout is not an isolated phenomenon, but is deeply interconnected with an individual's broader life circumstances. Stressful life events or transitions, whether work-related or personal, can significantly impact one's ability to desire to engage creatively. When individuals are grappling with family issues, demanding work schedules, or other personal challenges, the lack of enjoyment and mental bandwidth inevitably bleeds over into their creative hobbies. Underlying health issues or chronic stress also contribute to physical and mental exhaustion, directly impacting creative capacity. Recognizing that creative burnout can sometimes be a symptom of deeper underlying life problems is a crucial step towards holistic well-being and recovery. So now that we've analyzed what this is a lot, and we all feel very seen, and we all need to talk to therapists, let's start talking about maybe some things we can do. So preventive creative burnout requires a multifaceted, proactive approach that addresses individual habits, group dynamics, and the nature of creative activity itself. It is about building resilience and sustainability into one's creative life. The foundation of sustained creativity lies in robust physical and mental health. Prioritizing self-care is paramount. This begins with ensuring adequate sleep, aiming for 7 to 9 hours per night, as rest is essential for cognitive function and mood regulation. Nutrition and hydration are equally vital. A diet rich in fruits, vegetables, and omega-3s can combat inflammation and provide sustainable energy, while consistent hydration is crucial for overload.
I'm pretty sure I just scarfed down like half a pizza about 20 minutes ago.
It is. We do have a very bad habit of, like, in all our creative endeavors, of going to eat horrible food before we do that.
Yes.
Regular physical activity is a powerful antidote to stress, improving mood, boosting energy levels, and demonstrating enhanced creative inspiration. Even a simple walk can increase output by 60%. Beyond physical health, fostering mental well-being is critical. This includes incorporating stress relief activities such as meditation, deep breathing exercises, or journaling into daily routines. Practicing mindfulness and being present, rather than ruminating on worries, helps to manage negativity and maintain mental clarity. Engaging in digital detoxes and time offline is essential to reset the brain from constant information overload and unhealthy comparisons. This intentional disconnection allows for mental recovery and a refreshed perspective. So, besides general information, establishing clear boundaries is one of the most potent defenses against creative burnout. This involves setting specific start and end times for creative work, including regular breaks, to maintain a healthy work-life balance. For creatives who often struggle to switch off, this is particularly challenging but necessary. It also means learning to say no to unreasonable demands on one's time and energy, prioritizing activities that generally bring joy and align with personal capacity. The ability to decline requests and delegate responsibilities, especially within communal creative activities, directly counters the pressure of overwork and excessive individual burden. For a GM, this may mean asking players to run one-shots, rotating GM duties, or delegating small in-game roles. This is not merely about distributing workload, it is a fundamental shift in the ingrained expectation that one person must shoulder the entire creative and organizational weight.
I disagree. I feel it's a good thing having one person shoulder the entire weight.
Get good, scrub.
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, I don't know what more needs to be said about that.
By empowering group members to contribute more actively and by confidently saying no to commitments that exceed one's capacity, individuals engage in acts of self-preservation that simultaneously strengthen the collective. This fosters shared ownership, reduces individual pressure, and transforms a potentially solitary burden into a truly collaborative effort, which is essential for the long-term health of communal creative pursuits. Setting realistic goals and deadlines is another crucial strategy. Breaking down large projects into smaller, manageable tasks prevents overwhelm and allows for consistent progress, providing small bursts of motivation with each completed milestone. For GMs, this could mean simplifying preparation by focusing only on story-critical details and using bullet points for improvisational elements, rather than meticulously planning every single aspect. Managing expectations, both personal and those of the group or clients in the game dev context, though clear communication and detailed project scope documents helps to avoid misunderstandings and reduce anxiety. Adopting a mindful approach to the creative process can significantly mitigate burnout. This involves embracing variety and experimenting with new forms or mediums. Breaking free from monotonous routines and exploring new techniques or skills can unlock fresh insights and inspire new ideas. For gamers, this might mean playing a wide variety of genres or exploring game design for educational purposes. For GMs, it could involve trying a new game system or setting to refresh to the creative challenge. Focusing on the process rather than solely the outcome can alleviate the pressure of perfectionism and external validation. Celebrating small achievements and acknowledging progress, no matter how minor, reinforces motivation. Allowing oneself to make bad art or accept setbacks as a part of the learning journey can reduce anxiety and foster a healthier relationship with the creative process. This approach encourages consistency over perfection, recognizing that mastery comes from repeated effort, not flawless execution. Incorporating structured distraction by alternating between focus work and creative breaks can also be highly beneficial, as the brain is not designed for sustained attention over long periods. In communal creative activities, the environment itself plays a creative role in preventing burnout. Open communication and mutual respect among group members are foundational. Encouraging discussions about workload, personal stressors, and potential burnout creates a safe space for individuals to voice concerns without fear of reprisal. For a GM, this means regularly checking in with players, listening to their feedback, and openly communicating one's own feelings about the game. Leaders within creative groups, whether formal or informal, must model healthy behaviors and respect with their own boundaries and addressing issues with kindness and clarity. Implementing a code of conduct or clear ground rules for communication, feedback, and roles can prevent misunderstandings and conflicts. Encouraging shared responsibility and recognizing that the creative burden does not solely rest on one individual can significantly lighten the load. This might involve players contributing ideas, taking notes, or even offering to run sessions. Fostering genuine connections between inside and outside the group. Fostering genuine connections both inside and outside the creative group provides essential support that can recharge creative energy. All right. So when creative burnout is already set in, a different set of strategies is required to facilitate recovery and rekindle the lost passion. This involves intentional detachment, strategic re-engagement, and leveraging support systems. The most fundamental and often overlooked step in overcoming creative burnout is taking a significant break. This is not merely a short pause, but a proper hiatus, days, weeks, or even months, where there is no expectation of creative output. The objective is to completely step away from the demanding activity without guilt, allowing the mind and body to fully rest and recover. This period of detachment is crucial for enabling a rediscovery of passion. The aim is to return to the creative activity with fresh eyes and renewed enthusiasm as if encountering it anew. For a GM, this might mean putting a campaign on pause, allowing players to run one-shots, or simply engaging in entirely unrelated activities. The true restorative power comes from breaking the vicious cycle of anxiety and unproductivity, creating a mental space where the intrinsic joy of creation can naturally resurface without the pressure of obligation. It is about allowing the creative wellspring to refill naturally rather than attempting to force a flow when it has run dry. Upon returning from a break, strategic re-engagement is key. This involves reconnecting with the underlying motivations and passions that initially drew one to the creative pursuit. Reflecting on past accomplishments, both good and bad, can help channel positive feelings and overcome self-doubt, reminding individuals of their capabilities and growth. A powerful method for rekindling inspiration is to experiment and play without the pressures of perfection or unrealistic expectations. This could involve trying new techniques, mediums, or styles, or simply engaging in creative activities purely for enjoyment. The role of novelty and cross-pollination cannot be overstated here. Engaging in new activities, exploring different genres, or even diving into entirely unrelated hobbies acts as a potent stimulant for creating rejuvenation. This is not just about finding new ways to pass the time, it's about exposing the mind to diverse stimuli, fresh perspectives, and new mental models. These new experiences can then unexpectedly generate connections and spark novel ideas that can be brought back to the primary creative endeavor, preventing stagnation and fostering a renewed sense of excitement and possibility. This structured distraction and continuous input are vital for feeding the creative spirit. When ready to resume the primary creative activity, starting with the smallest atomic unit of work can prevent overwhelm. For example, if writing a book, beginning with a single paragraph; if designing a game, focusing on one wireframe or a single manageable feature. Burnout, especially in communal activities, can often lead to isolation. Actively seeking support and connection with others is a vital part of recovery. Simply voicing the struggle to trusted colleagues, friends, or fellow creatives can be immensely helpful, as many are willing to offer a hand, brainstorm ideas, or simply lend an empathetic ear. Engaging in creative collaborations can provide fresh insight, shared ideas, and mutual motivation, revitalizing the creative process. For GMs, this might involve encouraging players to take on a temporary GM role for one-shots or short arcs, or actively brainstorming together to address campaign stagnation. Addressing player dynamics and fostering a supportive gaming environment through open communication and mutual respect can alleviate stress and create a more positive atmosphere. So overcoming burnout often also necessitates significant internal shifts in perspective. This includes actively challenging negative self-talk and replacing self-critical thoughts with positive affirmations. Practicing self-compassion, treating oneself with kindness and understanding, especially during setbacks, is crucial. Individuals should acknowledge their accomplishments, no matter how small, to rebuild confidence. It is important to avoid feelings of guilt about needing a break or not wanting to work on a project, recognizing that one does not owe anyone their creative energy if it leads to burnout is liberating. Making space for self-reflection is a key to understanding the root cause of burnout. This can take the form of journaling, discussing struggles with a trusted friend, or reviewing one's environment and schedule to identify stressors. Being aware of one's own thinking processes allows for better problem solving and strategy application. If burnout symptoms are severe, persistent, or accompanied by significant mental health challenges like anxiety or depression, seek professional help. Therapists or counselors can provide strategies for managing stress, processing difficult emotions, and addressing underlying issues that contribute to burnout. Many creative industries and communities are increasingly recognizing the importance of mental health resources and support systems. All right, so what have we talked about here? Creative burnout, particularly within the passionate realms of gaming, role-playing, and other communal activities, is a complex phenomenon distinct from general occupational fatigue. It strikes at the heart of an individual's creative identity, manifesting as a profound exhaustion, a loss of inspiration, and a pervasive sense of inadequacy. The unique pressures of continuous innovation, the blurring lines between hobby and obligation, and the burden of over-preparation, and the dynamics of group interaction all contribute to its insidious onset. Successfully navigating the creative labyrinth requires a holistic and proactive approach. Prevention is paramount, rooted in robust self-care that prioritizes physical and mental well-being, strategic boundary setting, and the cultivation of realistic expectations. It demands a mindful engagement with the creative process, embracing variety and focusing on the intrinsic joys of creation over external validation. Within communal settings, fostering open communication, shared responsibility, and supportive environments are not merely beneficial, but essential for collective resilience. When burnout does take hold, genuine recovery necessitates a period of true detachment, a guilt-free break that allows for the fundamental rediscovery of passions. Re-engagement should be intentional, driven by curiosity, experimentation, and the cross-pollination of new experiences. Leveraging the power of community, seeking support from fellow creatives, and when necessary, professional guidance provides crucial pathways back to this creative vitality. Ultimately, sustaining a vibrant creative life within communal endeavors means recognizing the delicate balance required, embracing self-compassion, and continuously nurturing the wellspring of imagination that makes these activities so profoundly rewarding. So you burned out? So you burned out from the burnout?
I'm burned out. Yeah. You burned out?
Burned out. Yeah, So what I thought was really interesting about all of this is that I found a lot of what was being described professionally, like what is basically knowledge in psychology on basically creative burnout, was stuff we just intrinsically found out through like stumbling over 20 years.
Yeah.
You know, there are some things that I think are very important to understand. One of them is the link between burnout and your physical and mental well-being.
Yeah.
And of all the parts of that you can control, even if you choose not to, and all the parts that you can't control, like even just getting older is one of them.
Yeah.
I distinctly remember in the beginning days of our role-playing games, going into work with like a 3x5 index card in my pocket the day we were going to play, and just scribbling with like a pencil and be like, and just like writing a couple notes to myself and coming in and doing a full session based on that. And that felt rewarding. And like, I was more in tune with watching how you guys dealt with it and making sure that I was providing the environment for you guys to do the things you wanted to. And like, I would come away from it and sure, at the end of the night and the following day, I'd be like exhausted.
Yeah.
And I'd be like, yeah, I don't want to talk about that for like a couple of days. But then by like the next weekend or the next, sometime the week after that, like I'd be like, I am ready to go back to that. Let's do that. I hit a point earlier this year where I was so burned out that I've hit this point probably twice this year where I thought I shouldn't even play the game anymore.
That's intense.
Like when we drove home from the last session, by the time we got to our apartment area, I was telling my partner that I don't think I can lead games anymore. Like not hysterical, like just logically, full stop. I think that was true. And now over the course of like a 2-week period, I don't come back to a point where I'm like, yeah. Like I come back to a point where I'm like, I could probably do it. Let me go onto Gemini or ChatGPT. Let me put in the information I can muster up and see if it can fill out the rest of it. Let me see if I can get what I need to when I show up. And that is so alien from how we started.
Yeah.
That's what kind of led me to the conclusion that I was like, I don't think I can do it anymore.
So you're currently running 2 campaigns.
Yeah, one of them is I'm not even running it. Like
No.
I have the book. I turn it on and I do it.
You just go.
And it helps me because I just don't think of that campaign.
Okay.
Like I know the weird thing about like you think that'd be like a stressor. It's not, because I just read.
Well, no, it wasn't that I thought it was a stressor. I was just wondering, is it a difference because it's different people? Like you've become so accustomed to the people that you're with that you're like, I know what to expect for the most part. I think I understand what's going to happen. And with the other group, it's a much newer group that has no real, only one person really has any experience playing whatsoever. If it's a different feeling, because you're just like, this is new to them and this is a more novel experience.
It is a little bit. So, like, I kind of, based on what we talked about here, like, I think they're like the chunks of burnout.
Mm-hmm.
And I think group burnout is a real thing.
Yeah.
Group burnout really, the group dynamic affects what I want to bring to the table. And some of these are hard things to say. Like, one of the reasons I don't want to play vampire with everybody, or I don't want to run a vampire game,
Mm-hmm.
is that the group no longer plays vampire.
Mm.
Like, you do. And occasionally Jason does.
Yeah.
Everybody else plays D&D in Vampire World.
Yeah.
Nobody has their own motivations. Nobody does anything like how. So for listeners, when we started playing Vampire many years ago, and I'm expecting probably a lot of you have something similar, a mechanic was invented of like going and talking in the other room.
Yeah.
And every session that would happen 3 or 4 times. And it wasn't necessarily that your character was like trying to actively go against somebody in the room. There were just things you didn't want to get said.
Mm-hmm.
Vampire is a supremely like selfish game. Your characters are very selfish and self-isolated. So even in the coterie, they would usually have things they just didn't want other people to say. We haven't done that in years.
Mm.
Like everybody at the table just speaks openly. And it's largely because two of the people have never been exposed to that.
Yeah.
And even when we were doing Vampire Online, which was when we were kind of having those self-written stuff, they didn't know how to like have both their individual story and the meta story.
Yeah.
So they would even just take it and bottle it up and be like, this is a thing that happens online only. Or they were like, it's the same thing. Why don't we just talk about it in front of everybody? So the experience of playing Vampire doesn't happen anymore.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that was one of the reasons why I get supreme burnout almost immediately.
Yeah, because you're expecting an outcome, you're expecting a reaction, you're expecting them to go beyond just tell me the story and where I fit in it, and you're not getting that.
Yeah, I mean, so you end up with like planning for a session, and you know, in our for those of you who haven't listened in this part, but like we did a whole thing where we played Miami vampires.
Yeah.
And so in that session, there was like a group dynamic. Sure. The group basically had a location that they could stay in, and they had people that they would talk to. And then you had everybody's individual plans. And like one of them, like our Drake, his character, like had a whole thing like set up, and I tried to research all this stuff, and part of it was my fault because he wanted to focus on that fact that he was somebody trying to reclaim his like ability to be a doctor in the civilian world when he was a vampire, and I gave him this entire clan to go talk to, and he would be like, hey, I'm going to go ask you a few questions and walk away.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh man. And then if they asked him anything, he would bring it up to the group really quick and be like, hey, so somebody from my clan says we should go look at blah, blah, blah. And like,
yeah, and it's just like you gave him no offense to the Drake character, but he told us everything.
Yeah.
There were very few situations where it's just like you just got some pretty killer information that really only pertains to you and your situation, but you're straight up just like, yeah, so this just happened.
Yeah.
And it's just like none of us knew each other before this situation. In fact, I made my character extremely difficult to like and get along with, but everybody trusted him to tell him things. And it was just this really strange dynamic. And it's like, yeah, I understand. Because, yeah, like you said, they're playing D&D instead of playing Vampire. And in D&D, you are usually a tight-knit group that depends on each other to live. Where a Vampire, it's you're trying to live and you happen to have this group of people that are also trying to live.
Yeah, like it's a measured, it's easier to survive because I have these people.
Yes.
But that doesn't mean that
They're not family.
Yeah, they're not gonna I'm not gonna drag them into everything because some things they should not know.
Right.
Like, I don't want them to know I'm a liability, you know?
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's not the total reason. It's like, that's not the chief reason for burnout. That's just one thing I became aware of was
Yeah.
like, and so that I think when we mentioned that it's like this expectation of what you bring this story to the group, and there's this expectation of building this world in your head, and whether if you've done a good job, you probably talked with your players and synced up on what you're presenting with them.
Yes, for the love of God, please do that.
But sometimes you present to your players, hey, I'm thinking of doing this thing. And whether it's you not presenting it well, or whether it's a player just not picking their character to the day before we play,
Yes.
there's no buy-in. Like they've made their ideas separately from the main group. And like two of our players kind of did that. And like in the Star Wars game that we're playing now, you know? So like at that point you're like, well, how can I make something catered to you when like you waited until the last minute to play?
Yeah.
And at that point you're like, it's an like they're treating it like it's an obligation to sit at the table, not like a thing that they're allowed to do. And that's the thing that gives them, you know, a source of energy and pleasure. And I think our whole group, if you have a spectrum of burnout, and on one side is zero burnout, and zero burnout is you're like, I need this. I need to be here. I need it every week. I am thinking of it consistently. I want to be there. I want to be surrounded by it 24/7, which is probably not healthy, but like that's zero burnout.
Mm-hmm.
And 100% burnout is like, this is the active stressor in my life, and I dread going to see it.
The game is in 2 days. I'm going to spend tomorrow getting this stuff together, and I'm going to stress about it.
I think somewhere in the center, I think we're all on that spectrum, and none of us are really towards the zero end. Like, I think you and Jason are in a place of like, socially and emotionally, I need this, but I don't really care about what it is I want. I just need the thing. And like, that means that like 50% of you is not paying attention to what's happening, you know? And then the others, some of them are getting to the point where like, I think they're like mixing it up in their head of like, this is just an obligation that to be there means everything's are going well. And I'm like, maybe you shouldn't be there. I don't know. Like if you can't be excited about either writing the game on like the DM side or making your character on your side, then it means that at that point in your life, maybe you shouldn't be playing.
Yeah.
You know? And like, I think these are all, and I don't say it without a large measure of self-critique on myself. Like there's a large portion of this is things that I'm saying. Like I recognize that I really wanted desperately a deep lore-driven, like not Lord of the Rings, but like Game of Thrones fantasy thing that I just couldn't squeeze out of a rock, you know? Like, and it just didn't happen. And like, I had to come to terms with it of like, that was just expecting something with the wrong group. Like the group was never going to do that. Like our group tends to a lot more jokier, a lot more loose, fun kind of stuff. So you can't expect high emotional, you know, stuff aside from the occasional like culmination of a campaign.
Yeah. Our group tends to be a bit more spontaneous in things. They don't tend to plan things out. Yeah, no, I'm with you, and I take some responsibility on that one because I'm where you're like the deep thinker, the intrigue, the plot, the blah blah blah. I just like the experience of going headlong into it.
Yeah, and like I think part of that was because previously, or like the part of the way it would occasionally work was previously we had people at the table who did want their thing.
Yes.
Like I think our resident archer Heartseeker arrow dude, like he was the premier example of I want my thing.
Yeah.
And as long as like you engaged with him, and I'm not holding him up as a classic, like he's a great player because he definitely had some issues, but like he definitely, you could have that conversation with him and he's like, my character wants this.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't care about the group. Like I'll be with the group, but this is the thing that is motivating my character. And so this is the thing you have to engage with if you want to engage me. And I was like, gotcha, check mark. Every game I need to think about that and weave it into the story. And as long as I can, boom, he's happy. He's there. He's extremely into it. And he took up the responsibility of like, I am always looking out for this.
Yeah.
Sometimes with hilarious results. With Jason, who kind of felt originally like he would take that part up, it's too much mixed with the like, I just want to be here.
Yeah.
So it's not like he just doesn't have the like weird obsessive drive for personal like motivation.
Mm-hmm.
Instead, he's instead like kind of an agent of chaos where he's like, we're not doing anything. I need to make something happen.
Yeah.
So like we don't have the voices at the table of those people who are just like the person who would play a rogue. When was the last time any of us played a rogue?
True.
Because no one's going to go off on their own and steal something or try to screw up the party. Like it's weirdly, supremely trusted.
I mean, I would. I just do it in different ways.
I know. And then like from a critique of like if I'm trying to make these characters work or these players work, one of the big problems too is that like you don't have those people to play off of.
Yeah.
Like you need somebody who's always going to be motivated to do something that way you can play off, well, is that what I'm care about or not? You know, and I can focus on the basis. And then you also need people who will just actively go like be suspicious of you and go against you and like always be like, wait, what is he doing? Because then you feel better about your moves. So all this stuff is like the second pillar. Like there's the pillar of like, we're not interested in the same things. The party dynamic just is weird. And then I think on top of that, you lay off personal stuff, things that are going on in our like professional lives or the lack thereof. You know, you mentioned like getting older, you know, health concerns and stuff like that. And when you pull it all together, you end up with that moment of coming home from a game and thinking like, I don't think I can do this anymore.
Yeah.
And so, you know, we're going to play again. We're having a podcast about these games. So, you know, there's no sense of we're going to abandon this and we just got to find a way through. And I think we've talked about a lot of the things we should be aware of. I know that we just spent 20 minutes talking about our personal weird stuff that didn't make sense to any of you. I apologize. But maybe if you hear people saying things that you might have been thinking yourself at one point in time, it helps.
Yeah.
So, hey, take care of yourselves. Try to find the joy in gaming again and rolling dice. And you know what? Kill your party every once in a while just because. The party. The party.
Yes, the characters, not the players.
Yeah.
That's one thing I have to ask about before we finish off. Did that motivate you?
The first time, yeah.
Yeah?
The first time was just like, that was idiots. You guys were idiots and you deserve to die.
What about the second time?
Then I felt bad. It was like,
what about the third time?
It was like kicking a puppy.
What about the fourth time?
So why can't you guys? That's when I started giving them magic items that were like, come on, guys, here's a thing.
Use your head.
Come on, you've learned the lesson. You don't have to smash your head back into it. All right, guys, we'll see you later.
Bye.